You shouldn't actually punch people in the face on movie sets unless you really know what you're doing. And if you do it by accident, you're probably going to need another take, because reality, for reasons we're about to get into, is sometimes unrealistic. My name is Jill Bearup, I love fake fighting for stage and screen, and today we're going on an adventure with Indiana Jones to discover why you shouldn't bring a real punch to a fake fight. This video is part of the Director Project, a YouTube playlist collaboration where a whole bunch of YouTubers make a video about a particular director. This month is Steven Spielberg, and so I decided to join in with punching, as is my wont. And I brought a friend. So let's get set up. The plot of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom goeth thusly. Dr. Jones, who by means of escaping a crime boss in Shanghai ends up travelling with nightclub singer Willie Scott, and by means of the need for a cute child sidekick, ends up with Short Round in tow as well, unceremoniously arrives in India by way of a crashed plane. He ends up in a village which has had both its Sankara stone and all its kids stolen, so he goes to investigate. After shenanigans, turns out the children are being held as slaves by baddies who are forcing them to mine for gemstones and search for the two remaining Sankara stones. Indiana retrieves the stones, rescues the children, and then our dynamic trio end up in a minecart chase that was just begging to be made into a Disney ride. It is at this point that Willie steps up to the plate and does one of the three-ish useful things that she actually does in this film. The script and fight choreography call for her to slug a bad guy right in the face, knocking him off the cart, causing the cart behind them to crash. Hooray! You did something good in the face of the traumatic nightmare that has been your movie experience thus far. This did not go quite as planned when they were shooting, and to tell you why, I'll let Laura take up the story.
Hi, what's up? I'm Laura Crone. I'm a fellow YouTuber and amateur stunt performer, and today I'm here to introduce Vic Armstrong, a good old English horseboy turned stunt legend who you probably do not in fact recognize as James Bond, Superman, and the man of the hour, Indiana Jones. Now, by the time Temple of Doom rolled around, Armstrong was not only doubling Harrison Ford, but was also working as the stunt arranger, also often known as the stunt coordinator. So it was his job to figure out how to do all of the fights and other dangerous stuff in a way that was safe enough to be repeatable while still looking convincing and cool on camera. Like in this shot, where Kate Capshaw, as Willie Scott, needs to defend herself from a baddie who has just, gently whack-a-moled Indy into submission, I guess? And she does so by means of a big old right cross to the face. Now, this is a tricky shot for a couple of reasons. We're at super close quarters, the cart is moving, the camera is moving, and we are staring Kate Capshaw right in the face, so there is no chance of swapping her out for her double. Incidentally, Wendy Leach, who you may not in fact recognize as Stunt C-3PO and real-life spouse of Vic Armstrong. And like every tricky shot ever captured in the history of film, this one was apparently running right over and into lunchtime. Now, for those of you who may be new around here, when a punch is filmed on camera, especially this kind of absolute walloping directly to the face, there is not supposed to be any actual physical contact. It's an illusion created by aligning the fist, the face, and the lens of the camera just right to make it look like a hit. And if you don't have years and years of experience developing a sixth sense for where exactly the straight line connecting those 3 points exists in space, especially with a dynamic camera and a dynamic set, and a shot so close your audience can see the difference between a punch to the nose and a punch to the teeth with total clarity, you might not know it until you see it. Nowadays, it's a quick walk over to Video Village and there you go. But if it's 1984 and film has to be developed into dailies for you to see the footage you just shot, it's up to Vic Armstrong to play the role of Chief Rainer-on of Parades and tell your tired, sweaty, and very hungry crew that you've got to go back for one more because your increasingly under pressure leading lady missed again. And it was under these conditions that on one fatal take, the lovely Kate Capshaw finally popped her burly fight partner smack in the mouth hard enough to give him a fat lip. Spielberg and the rest of the crew were overjoyed, ready to finally get out of this godforsaken mine shaft, but Armstrong insisted that they still didn't quite have it. See, Capshaw did what most humans do when they hit another human without intending to. She wienered it the second she realized she'd made contact. So what Armstrong was able to see was that even though she had actually hit the guy hard enough to do obvious physical damage, it would look weak sauce in the shot because there was no follow-through.
My first week of stage combat, I smacked my partner right in the jaw. Sorry again, Max. Luckily, I'm not very good at punching, he's a big guy, and like Kate Capshaw, as soon as I actually made contact, I immediately stopped trying to follow through. Still, nothing makes you conscious of keeping your distance like assaulting your partner by accident. On-screen punches look convincing if A, as Laura already mentioned, you line up the camera and actors correctly, but also B, the person doing the punching follows through and looks convincing, and C, the person being punched reacts properly. We'll come back to this one. So even if A, we've got everything lined up correctly because we actually made contact, we're still going to be short on B, because Kate Capshaw was not intending to hit this dude in the face, and so there'd be a weak or non-existent follow-through.
The shot that made it into the film is a really solid example of the full body involvement it takes to sell a punch. You can see her make a fist in the bottom of the frame, twist her whole torso to cock it back, and initiate the punching action way down in her hips. There's plenty of time given to each of these steps, so you can really see the physicality of her decision to punch him. Plus, she's got her best mean face on to sell the aggression. Theoretically, to level this punch up, you'd want some action in the offhand, but bracing on the cart like she's doing is probably necessary for the actress and makes sense for the character. The follow-through after the hit connects is the one little tell that this isn't her area of expertise. Typically, you're going to tell a stronger physical story by following the action all the way through, rather than leaving the fist hanging out there.
If you don't have a follow-through, you only have half a punch. And Vic Armstrong, not gonna let that go.
It's a credit to Spielberg, though, that for all he grumbled about it, at least according to Armstrong's account of events, he still called for one more take, which Capshaw nailed and Armstrong signed off on, and which he was super thankful to have when he eventually got to see how weak that real punch looked in the dailies.
The other problem I mentioned is when you're doing a punch like this, even if you've lined everything up correctly, and even if, after accidentally making contact, the actor stays in character and follows through, you might still not have a shot, because by actually making physical contact with them, you've just made the stunt performer's job unexpectedly much harder.
For a reaction like this, where there's not supposed to be any physical contact, the performer getting hit is totally in control of their own body. They take their timing off of the person hitting them, but they generate all of the action of the head snapping back, the rest of the body following, and falling down to the ground on their own. And in a shot this tight and dynamic, there's not a lot of wiggle room on marks, which is the name for the precise spots where the performers need to be in order to make sure that the shot looks good as a whole. So actually getting hit has the potential to throw two particular wrenches into the works. First is the surprise factor. Similar to what we talked about with Capshaw wimping out, there's no way to really predict how a person is going to respond to an unexpected face full of pain. And second, there's the pure physicality of it. Even a real wiener of a punch carries at least some force with it, and you don't know exactly what that's gonna do to your momentum until it happens, and adjusting on the fly may or may not work out the way you need it to. Moral of the story? Real isn't always, or even usually, better.
So don't bring a real punch to a fake fight. I made a video a while back about Tom Hiddleston being repeatedly punched by Natalie Portman in Thor: The Dark World, and all the reasons why you shouldn't do it that I said in there still apply. There are examples of real injuries making it into movies. Poor old Vigo kicks an orc helmet, breaks his toe and screams, and Aragorn screaming in frustration makes it into the movie. But if there's a primary moral to the story, it's this. Don't expect real violence to necessarily look more convincing than fake violence. The whole point of fake violence is to look as convincing as possible while not landing anyone in the hospital after all.
Secondary moral? You're paying your coordinator good money. Friggin' listen to them.
To bring it back to the director for a moment, Steven Spielberg had the good sense to listen to the expert he had paid a good chunk of money to hire. If your stunt arranger says, do it this way, you should default to doing it that way. I mean, now that we're all on digital, they can just play it back to you and show you why it's not working, but in general, you hire your stunt arranger because of their training and their experience. If they say you need one more, just do it.